Welcome to the Hunter's Advantage podcast, where a group of budget-minded hunters scour the woods for whitetail bucks and whatever other big game is in season. Tune in each week to hear the hilarious public and private land hunting stories and mistake-filled lessons learned. We believe that every hunt brings us closer to God and that we exist to share the good news. And now, your hosts, Christian Babcock and Jake Gaylord.
Listen, guys, we wouldn't be able to do the podcast if it wasn't for you all. So we just want to say that you guys are greatly appreciated, and thank you for following along each week.
And speaking of support, we are partnered with Out on a Limb Manufacturing, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, Matt and Chase are great, down-to-earth guys, and they make some of the best saddle hunting products out there. Whether you're looking for a set of climbing sticks or a mobile, lightweight, hang-on tree stand, or maybe you're even a one-sticker.
You mean tree Pilates?
Yes, tree Pilates. If you've been to the grocery store or the gas station lately, you know that Uncle Joe is doing his absolute worst to take all your money. That's why we need hunting gear that lasts year after year. And trust me, I've been rocking the same Out on a Limb Shakar climbing sticks for 4 years and the Ridge Runner 2.0 saddle hunting platform for a few years as well. This gear is built to last.
We can confidently say that Out on a Limb is the best bang for your buck.
And it's the best gear if you want to deflate a big old buck.
Ooh. Make sure you use code HNTA15 at outonalimbmfg.com for 15% off anything on their website.
So if you can show them the same support that you guys show us, please go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA15 for 15% off at checkout. Now let's get back to the podcast. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. Today we are joined by a guest, Garrett Baeten. Thanks for jumping on with me, man.
No, not a problem, man. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we've talked about doing this podcast for, I think the original, I'm looking at it now, the original email was October 9th of last year. So we've managed to stay in touch for 5 months, but hey, here we are. You know how it goes with deer season and all the other stuff. It's hard to get on the phone and talk about hunting instead of just doing it.
Yeah, when I originally got a hold of you, I don't think it could have been a much worse of a time.
Oh yeah, October 9th, that's just when everything's ramping up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know we talked a little bit about your background into the email, but for people that are listening to the show, it's going to be probably their first time hearing about you and your story. So give us a little bit of background on kind of where you are in life and what you're doing right now in terms of the outdoor space. What do you like to hunt? What kind of lights your fire right now?
So I guess my story starts years ago. My immediate family, an aunt and uncle, they moved up to Alaska 27 years ago, I think it is now. So they've been up there for a long time and been going up to Alaska basically ever since I was knee high. And I kind of had that fire lit under my butt that I wanted to move up there one day, and I always thought it was just kind of a dream to be able to go up there and hunt big game. And specifically, I wanted to get a brown bear. And finally, I just reached a point in my life where I moved up there, I think I was 23, and I just said, all right, this is it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to apply. Ever since I got out of school, I went to the tech college and got a associate's degree in law enforcement and was a local municipal cop around northeast Wisconsin where I live now. But I just moved up to Alaska, and more specifically, I lived on the Kenai Peninsula, and I worked for the Kenai Police Department for almost 3 years, and lived up there and got to do some great big game hunting that otherwise I don't think I would have been able to afford or had the means to do so if I hadn't actually lived there. But I moved back here in 2021, and I didn't realize how much I hated winter and cold until I moved up there. And even in South Central Alaska, it wasn't nearly as bad as if you get up by Fairbanks or Prudhoe Bay or anything like that. But we just got 5 inches of snow here last night, and I looked outside after getting home from Florida on Thursday, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's time to move again.
There you go. Yeah, you've heard it on us talking on the podcast. Jake and I have some aspirations. I think as anyone who bow hunts or hunts in general, just wants to hunt Alaska. But it's funny, talking about that made me think. I had a buddy that was interested in being a state trooper, and we were looking at places for him to work and stuff. And I remember one of the places that like paid the best and had like the best recruiting like bonuses to try to get people up there was Alaska. He's like, I'm thinking about moving to Alaska and trying it up there. So that'd be pretty awesome.
So the tough thing about Alaska is, yes, you can make a ton of money. I think in 2022, I think this is the last record that I saw, and this could be a little bit of a variance, but I want to say that the highest paid state trooper up there was like $300,000.
Jeez.
I was like, that's insane. But I got a friend that he's a sergeant with the state troopers, and he was telling me that they are getting like another, was it 8 or 18% raise? Like over the course of the last 3 years, they got 18% every year. Like, I would just take 18% in total as a raise. That would be awesome. But where they get you up there is no like defined benefits package when you retire. So there's no pension. It's all 401 or 457. So it's a little bit of that's the retention issue right there, is off of the retirement. Not to mention, Alaska's not for everybody. It wasn't for me in the long grand scheme of things. I'll be the first to admit that.
So you grew up hunting in Wisconsin. You grow up hunting whitetail and stuff. Like, set the big game hunting on the side for a second. Like, what is it like moving up to Alaska? Are you culture shocked the first time you get up there? Is it as remote as you've ever seen? Like, what's about it that wasn't for you?
So you're saying like when I actually moved up there, what my first thought was?
Yeah, what's your first thought, and then why wasn't it for you?
So the hunting I could definitely get used to. That wasn't much of a culture shock. The culture shock was how violent and disruptive and at some times dysfunctional the criminal justice system in Alaska can be, because of where they fall under the judicial circuit for like the states, the Court of Appeals for the United States. And it's definitely a little bit more liberal because they fall under the same judicial district as like Oregon, Washington, California. So any big court decisions that are made in those states, those are automatically applied to Alaska and Alaska law. So like you wouldn't think that a town or a city the size of Kenai was as busy as it was. Like, we had 18 sworn officers, and I want to say we were running anywhere from like 10 to 11,000 calls a year, like actual calls that didn't include like traffic or anything like that, unless you made an arrest off of it. But where we got most of our busy time was in the summertime. Basically, the middle of June to the end of August was our tourist time. But we also had the subsistence fishery on the Kenai River. So you get people from all over Alaska, including like Fairbanks and north, that would come all the way down to Kenai, and they would dip that on the Kenai River, and our population would go up. I want to say we were right around 8,000 people, 8 to 9,000 people, like was our running population. And it went up to like 20 to 30,000 in the month of July because of that subsistence fishery. And people would literally set up tent cities on the banks of the mouth of the Kenai River were dumped into the Cook Inlet. And the amount of crime that came with that, and the cannery workers, not to mention our resident criminals that we had to deal with, it was pretty crazy.
What about Alaska makes it such a hotbed for crime? Is it the remoteness, or is it just literally the political environment of the, like you said, the more liberalized stuff?
I think it's the remoteness. The remote aspect of Alaska is appealing to people. Like I'm specifically thinking of one person that we dealt with all the time. He always had warrants for his arrest out of Kansas, but we couldn't pick him up on it because Kansas isn't going to send up a cop to Alaska to pick up some dude on a traffic warrant. So that's where people thought, I'm just going to go to Alaska. I'm going to get away from everything. Nobody's going to come pick me up unless it's like a serious felony warrant that they're wanted on. But the less harsh sentencing, I think, is another issue where people, it's just kind of a slap on the wrist. I remember specifically before I even went up there, I was talking on the phone with the lieutenant from Kenai PD, And he was telling me, yeah, man, you're going to be kind of shocked to come up here because people can have like methamphetamine. Every state in the union has meth issues right now. You can have a bag of meth in your pocket and literally get a ticket for it, like it's a bag of weed. You don't go to jail unless you have a previous conviction. It's a misdemeanor ticket, and you let them go.
Do you take the meth at least?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's say, wait, here's your ticket and here's your meth back.
Yeah. It was just crazy. I'd never seen anything like that. And even like COVID, that was a perfect time to point it out. Where we made a traffic stop on a car one time, and the guy, I could tell he was under the influence of meth. I was like, did you smoke some meth today? And he's like, laughing. He's like, yeah. Like, do you have any meth on you? Yeah. Can I have it? And he hands me a bag of meth. Wrote him a ticket and let him go because he never been convicted of it before. Never seen anything like that before in my life.
So it sounds like you hear about these sanctuary cities for like immigrants and illegal immigrants and stuff. It sounds like sanctuary city for crime, like, or sanctuary state for crime. It's just like the perfect place to go if you want to be a criminal.
Yeah, it was something, man. But man, if you accidentally shot a undersized bull moose up there, that was a $300 fine. And if you tried to cover it up, then they'd start charging with actual crimes. It's interesting.
I've always wondered that myself. Yeah, it still doesn't change me wanting to go up there. So I'm interested. You talked about obviously you're a whitetail hunter at heart, and that's what you're still doing now. But was the main reason, obviously you had your profession in law enforcement before, but was your main reason for moving the big game hunting?
100%. Yep. I knew that if I wanted my chance at killing a big brown bear in Alaska, that I had to move up there and, go through the hoops of becoming a resident, and which took a year, and then being able to figure out what spot I wanted to go to for hunting.
In most states, it's like, I think it's 6 months before you can claim residency. Is it different in Alaska?
Yep. You have to be there for 1 year.
Oh man, they're really cracking down on the people just coming in for 6 months to hunt.
Yeah.
6 months early and become a resident.
Yeah, it's because Alaska, they know what people want to do. They know that they have the prized possession animals up there, like the Dall sheep, the mountain goats, the bison herds. You got the Roosevelt elk out on Kodiak Island, and of course the brown bears.
Well, I'm in the middle of application season, I guess, right now, and I think I'm gonna end up applying for California, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. I already applied for New Mexico. I think there's another one, probably South Dakota.
Yep.
You see all these states and all the game and how the point systems work. And I bought a Go Hunt subscription like 2 years ago, and it's looking at some of the odds for some of those big game species, like all the sheep, the moose, a lot of those. It's depressing. It's like 29 points. It's like, all right, you're up to 1% chance now. It's like, what? 29 years of applying and I'm still at 1%. What do you mean?
Yeah, and you'll pretty much be knocking on the door of being 60 years old before you can actually go hunt that sheep tag.
Right. And so is there what I wonder from your perspective, and was it your experience, is there a benefit, like a large benefit to being a resident in Alaska versus being a non-resident from like a point perspective, trying to get these tags?
So Alaska, they don't have a point system up there. That's all lottery for their draws. So like I couldn't become a resident. Actually, you don't even have to be a resident to be a part of a lottery system. But you could go up there, get all settled in, and the first year that you're up there, put in for the draw. You could put in for the tote sheep tag, which is one of the most coveted sheep tags in Alaska, along with like the Chugach tag or something like that. And you could draw it your first time. I've heard of it happening, but I mean, that would never happen to me because my luck isn't that good. I can barely win a coffee cup at a work Christmas party raffle or something. I don't have very good luck drawing tags. That's the plain and simple bit of it.
So for people that are listening, like a pure, like there's basically two different systems. You got preference points, right? Which the more you have, the
Yep.
more up in the line you jump, and then lottery, which is New Mexico's a lottery system too. It's the odds are the odds, and depending on how many people apply that year, you may have a better chance or a worse chance, right? Like everyone's name go in a pool, but your name only goes in once. You're not going in twice or 3 times or 20 times, right? Like you're going in once. So do you know off the top of your head any of those odds for the sheep or the moose or any of those more like highly coveted tags in the lottery? Or how many people apply? I'm curious. It's got me curious now.
Like I actually did just look at the application packet. I know that the tote tag, that's less than 1%. They just pretty much tell you that right off the bat. You have less than a 1% chance of drawing that sheep tag. The Roosevelt bull tag out on a Fognac Island, I want to say it's still less than 10%, I think. Still not very good. There are tags that you can put in for on the lottery that they almost guarantee you to draw for, like some of the brown bear tags and stuff. You can pretty much be guaranteed to draw those tags. But the moose tags, I mean, there's a lot of very special moose tags that you can get access to as a resident through that lottery. Like down on the Kenai Peninsula, that zone, it was either a 50-inch wide rack for the moose, a spike bull, or I want to say it had to have 3 brow tines on one side. But there was like there's subunits throughout the Kenai Peninsula, and in each of those subunits, Fish and Game would allot like 5 moose tags that were any bull. So I mean that was pretty lucrative for somebody that lived down on the Kenai to get those tags, but non-residents couldn't apply for it. So that was kind of nice that the non-resident couldn't come in, get that any bull tag, drive up to Cooper Landing and see a 40-inch bull sitting on the side of the highway and walk down into the water and shoot the bull.
That is, so there is some benefits to being a resident, which there should be.
Yep.
Yeah, you got some
of those specific tags were resident only. Like there was an archery shoe gatch, any ram sheep tag that you could apply for and stuff like that, which I tried to apply for it, but didn't get it.
Didn't win your coffee cup. Yeah, I'm with you.
Nope.
No, it's really, really fascinating. So most of those, there is no like pure over the counter type of tags. Like even as a resident, you can't just go out and buy a brown bear tag.
Depending on what unit. On the Kenai Peninsula, yeah, you could pay $25 and that was your brown bear tag. You get a little metal locking tag, and then you just had to go in and tell the Fish and Game, I want such and such unit harvest ticket, and they would give you the little card that you literally notch. That was your tag. Literally, residents could pay. I want to say it was right around $100, and that was like your kind of like a sportsman's combo license where you have your fishing license, your trapping license. That would include all of your registration hunts. So that also would be like your moose tags, your caribou tags, sheep tags, if it was a registration sheep hunt, which there's units up north that you'd be able to literally drive your truck to and park on the side of the highway and start walking up the mountain and be in sheep country.
That's so cool. So you move up to Alaska in 2019, right? You start your job up there. Do you hunt year one as a non-resident? You put in for the lottery stuff, but you don't draw anything, right?
So I moved up January. I think I started driving from Green Bay January 5th. I got up there on the 9th. And I think I started work at KPD on the 14th of January it was. And I couldn't take it. I had to pay the non-resident tag license fees, and I hunted black bear and caribou that first fall. I didn't put in for any lotteries, like for the application period is from like October 15th to December 15th or something like that in Alaska. And I didn't do that in 2018 because I didn't have foresight to do it. But if I would have drew like a sheep tag or something, I wouldn't have been able to hunt it without a guide anyways. So it wouldn't have been too beneficial to me, I guess.
That's what I was going to ask you too. It slipped my mind. What is it about there? So I've looked at some stuff in Alaska. what is it that's up with the rules with the guiding? Like there's a certain areas or regions or zones that a non-resident or a resident has to be guided to hunt at all, or how does that work?
Species.
It's a
Yeah, it's all
species
dictated
thing.
by species. So like brown and grizzly bear, Dall sheep, mountain goat. I can't remember if muskox is on there. I want to say that it's not. I think we can. No, you don't have to have a guide for a muskox, but for the bears, sheep, goats, you have to have a guide.
Bear, sheep, goat. Is there a reason for that? Like, what's the? I don't. I guess I don't understand the purpose.
I don't know. It's just the way that Alaska kind of has always been since like the hunting really took off up there. I don't know if they probably see it as maybe just like a homegrown business type model of guys want to come up here and be guides and run an outfitting operation. Maybe that's why they keep it going. Maybe it's also because they want to limit the resource because, dude, you can't go up to Alaska and touch a brown bear hunt hardly for under $25,000. So that's going to be one of those things where not many people are going to do that every year. Same thing for sheep. That's only going up because the sheep numbers are going down. Not many people are even going up there to hunt sheep anymore because if you don't have a very good guarantee on getting an animal, or I shouldn't even say a guarantee, but like a good odds of getting a sheep, why would you pay $30,000 for a sheep then? Because that's pretty much what it's going for now. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a down payment on a freaking house to go try, not to get one, to try to shoot a sheep.
Yep, exactly. That could be a good down payment on a chunk of land down here that you can shoot whitetails on.
Let's get into it a little bit then. So you moved to Alaska 2019. You say you buy a black bear and a caribou tag, and so that's your first hunt in Alaska. Is that DIY? What does that look like?
So the black bear, that was probably about half-hour drive from my house. I have to just say that I had great resources up there, like my coworkers at the police department and especially the Kenai Fire Department. They were outstanding in helping me get my feet under me and get going for hunting. Like the guy that I went brown bear hunting, he has his own guiding business that he does on the side because Kenai Fire, they have such an awesome work schedule. They would work 48 hours, but then have 96 hours off. So work 2 days and then have 4 days off. And pretty easy for them to, flip a trade or something with another coworker, and then they got umpteen days off that they can go do whatever they want. So Justin, my coworker from Kenai Fire, he had a bear bait set up, and he's like, "Dude, if you want, we can go out and show you the area, and you can hunt around the baits or something if you'd like, or if you want to, blast the meadows or whatever and wait for a bear to come out, be my guest." So that's what ended up happening was I ended up getting the bear out of a meadow and just driving through all these big bogs and stuff. I was standing out there eating grass and got that bear. And then I got that in June. September, first week of September, we went up to Kotzebue, Alaska for caribou. And that was a transported hunt. So basically, in the transported hunts, they would give you all like the tents and the food and all the equipment besides what you needed personally to go hunting, and then a plane ride out to an area that they thought that they would have a good chance of putting you on caribou, and then you were on your own. It's kind of a lonely feeling when they drop you off, and all of a sudden the pilot jumps back in. Yeah, we'll see you in 9 days. Jumps in that plane and takes off, and you can't hear it anymore. You are a long way from civilization.
How far do you think, like in actuality, you are from people? Like the nearest town when you're out there?
I don't remember what that first trip was, but my second trip to Kotzebue, caribou hunting, I want to say we were 150 miles from Kotzebue.
I hunted a black bear in up near Dory Lake, Saskatchewan this last year. We were 2.5 hours from the nearest like gas station. And I was like, "Oh my God, what do you do?" I was asking our guide up there. He was I think in Saskatchewan, you have to hunt with a guide too. If I think that's a rule. But I was asking him, I was like, what do you do if you get a flat? What do you do if you run out of gas? He's like, you get a hold of somebody that can help you or you fix it. I was
Yep.
like, really? He's like, yeah, that's what you do. Because we drove for hours of dirt road, and I was just like, when are we ever going to get to this place? I've not seen a gas station. They texted us before we left Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. They're like, get gas because you will not, you will not make it back without it.
Yeah, and it's kind of a sinking feeling. Like you got to be careful when you're out in that backcountry like that too. There's like one slip of a knife or something, like you cut where you're not supposed to, you could seriously get in trouble.
So you go with 2 people on that hunt for caribou?
Yeah, my uncle and my cousin went with on that trip.
I'm curious now. I'm asking you all these questions selfishly because I want to do this stuff, which obviously you already knew. So that's pretty neat. It's not a DIY fully, but it's like you're renting a place to stay that you can take with you and drop off, and then they're giving you a ride, and then everything else is you're on your own. And
Yep,
this is all public ground,
exactly.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. For the
So
most part, I believe it was like federal land or something.
what is something like a drop off? What does something like that cost?
Actually, just talked to my buddy a couple months ago that I went on that second hunt with. And he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming back up here and going hunting with?" The pilot is Brian Albert. Um, his business name is escaping me for the second time here, but I want to say his prices it's damn near $6,000.
To get dropped off with a tent and stuff? And
Yep.
that's it?
Yep.
Man.
That was another thing I should have probably prefaced our conversation when we started talking about Alaska is you can do the hunting up there cheap. You can hunt on the road system for caribou and things like that and moose, but you're going to deal with people. Me, because of my profession, I like getting as far away from people as I possibly can. I don't want to see other hunters. And up there, you have to pay to play, and it's only getting worse. And when you're talking about paying $25,000 for a brown bear, or 30 grand for a doll sheep, the same thing. But that's where the bigger animals are going to be too, is way back out in the middle of nowhere, but nobody hunts them, especially off of the river system. Like out of Kotzebue, there's a lot of people that live in Kotzebue that will take the boats up the rivers, and they have moose camps or caribou camps that like the Alaska Natives have been using for hundreds of years up there, if not longer. Which is the history behind all that is kind of cool too.
Yeah, that is cool. So for a guy like you, obviously traveling is one of the main expenses. Getting to Alaska is crazy expensive. So knowing that you're in kind of a pay to play environment on like the getting out in the backcountry, having to have someone take you, that sort of thing, was that one of the motivations to live in close proximity? Because it's like, well, at least I don't have to get to Alaska every single time I want to launch off.
Yeah, I would say that was a smaller portion of it. The bigger thing was just how much the tags cost. Like as a non-resident, it's $1,000 for a brown bear tag, and I think I paid with the hunting license that first year. It was almost $600, I think, or over $600 just for the black bear. So I think it was $450 for the tag, and then $165 for the hunting license.
Yeah, there's a lot of costs associated with that. So you go out on a caribou hunt. What happens on your first caribou hunt with your cousin? And you think he said your uncle?
Yeah. So that was supposed to be a 5-day hunt, I think, a drop camp, and we got dropped into just a gorgeous valley, and it was right on the edge of some BLM or Bureau of Land Management property, butted up to some other federal land. And before I left, one of my supervisors at KPD said, "Don't shoot the first bull that you see. Wait for a good one. You're probably going to see, a lot of caribou, especially up in that country." Well, never seen a freaking caribou like up close, and it was a nice bull, but probably like a 2-year-old bull at like 100 yards, and I watched him forever. Like I stalked up for a herd all by myself. There were 7 bulls, and they literally dropped down and started sleeping and feeding right in front of me. All of a sudden, the biggest one gets up, looks around, and my gun went off. And the bull dropped, and I don't know, I guess I'm done. It's the first morning. It's not even noon yet. And yeah, I shouldn't have did that. That was a big learning experience for me. Don't shoot the first one that you see.
Is there truly that many of them where you can be picky like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my uncle shot 2 of them on the 3rd day of that dwarf mine. I'll have to send you some pictures of all that stuff. But I definitely made up for it on my second trip up there when we shot then we got 4 bulls on that trip. And one of them's shoulder mounted in my house now.
Oh, that is so cool. Is caribou something like where you were hunting? Is it something you think it's realistic to try to kill one with a bow?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I brought my bow on the second flyout trip that I went on, but I have a really tough time with doing these out-of-state trips and taking just the bow, because I know I can shoot out to like 40 yards, and like a whitetail, most of the time I can probably hit it. But when you're going out in the middle of nowhere, in grizzly-filled country, I just have a tough time bringing just my bow, because especially if I see a big bull out there, I want to get the bull and start processing it and bring it back to the camp. So if I did another one of those trips, I would probably just leave my rifle sitting at the house and bring specifically my bow and a sidearm or something like that, and give it the old college try to try and get something done with the bow and arrow.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I mean, it's cool to kill a caribou or anything, regardless of the weapon. That's kind of like a side quest, I guess. But I think, yeah, that's something to consider when you're traveling so far away. You've got so much sunk cost into it. It's like you're bringing a bow. You better be pretty determined to get one, because you could be going home with a very, very expensive bowl of tag soup.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool when we got back into Kotzebue on that second trip. That was in 2020, so COVID was still freaking a lot of people out, and especially up in those rural Alaska villages. And they weren't screwing around up there. Like, you had to get a rapid COVID test before you even got on the plane in Anchorage. And then you had to present the test results as soon as you got off of the plane. And they didn't want you like going all over town or anything. We ended up having to stay in the hotel most of the time. But we went to the airport the next day to jump on the plane and head down to Anchorage. And I'm standing there looking at this dude. I'm like, God, you look familiar. Like, I've seen you somewhere before. And the way that he was talking, I recognized him. It was Kurt Wells from Bowhunter Magazine. Him and another guy from Hoyt Archery were up there. They were caribou hunting. And we ended up having dinner with them that night because our flight got canceled. But then it was kind of neat that, 6 months later or whatever it is, when all the episodes got edited and put on the Outdoor Channel, I got to see the caribou hunt that they filmed when I got to meet up with them. And great guys. It's crazy that you see all these people growing up on TV when you're a kid, and you finally get to meet them, but it's out in the middle of nowhere in Alaska on the caribou.
Yeah, that'll make you feel like a small world, like out in the middle of nowhere, and you run into somebody like that. Yeah, that's really cool. So what is it like hunting a caribou? Is it a bunch of glassing, or is it like just generally the backcountry stuff that you guys were doing? Like, what does a typical morning look like for you? You get out of your camp. Obviously, you survived night 1 of not getting killed by a grizzly. Where do you go from there?
Well, so there was a big difference between year 1 and year 2 for me. So after the first year, like in between the 2 caribou hunts, there was a brown bear hunt and a black bear hunt for me. And when Justin and I went over to the Alaska Peninsula and we were hunting our brown bears, I was kind of shocked, like, on how he hunted, because especially like even like in the camp life, you get back from hunting, and the guy was taking earplugs and stuffing earplugs in his ears, and don't remember if he took melatonin or like sleeping pills or anything. But we're in the middle of freaking brown bear country, and he's got earplugs. And I'm like, dude, are you not concerned about the bears or anything like that? And he's like, nope, not worried about it until they're trying to get into the tent. Okay, I guess the logic kind of makes sense there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of fell into that routine like when we were in Kotzebue that second time too. And the guy that I was hunting with, he works for Sitka police down in southeast Alaska. And he said the same thing. He's like, dude, why are you putting earplugs in when you're getting ready to go to bed? I'm like, I want to get a good night's sleep, because if I am worried about the bears or I'm hearing like the wind and pushing sticks against the tent, I think it's claws on the tent that he's trying to get in. And so he was a lot more nervous than I was about it. But after the first night, like, you get into camp, get everything set up, wake up the next morning and try and find like a high point somewhere that you can see a long ways. It's a sit and wait game, because those caribou are likely going to run the rivers, and you might as well see them coming and try to head them off rather than catch up to them, because you're not going to catch up to a caribou. You're not running them down.
Find some, see direction of travel, and then get in front of them and wait.
Yep. Like where we got dropped off on that second trip, it was at the confluence of two rivers. And it was a decent sized river. And we saw probably like 30 caribou that first night. And you can't hunt the same day that you fly, unless it's for, like, I think blacktails might be one of the only things that you can hunt the same day that you fly up there. And so we just have to sit and wait and watch them. But it's one of those things that I learned that first year, that if you don't have to, you don't have to go try and tear the countryside up. And finding caribou, they'll come to you if you're in the migration path.
And you're kind of at the mercy of the people that drop you off, in the sense that you're just trusting them blindly to take you somewhere that there is caribou even within several miles.
Yep.
They better be a very trustworthy person, because I mean, you're getting picked up, you get dropped off at one place, you're getting picked up at the same place. Like, are you shifting around, moving camp several miles if you're not seeing anything, or is it just like, hey, you're in them enough where you can stay at that same base camp?
So Brian, he was an outstanding pilot, and he said, if you guys are hunting 2-3 days and you don't see anything, like, give me a call on the sat phone or on the inReach, shoot me a text message and I'll move you. But what sucks there is, if you get moved, you just lost another day, because you can't hunt. And if you're only in there for 5 days, like, time's of the essence. And that's why even now when I go out of state, I try to do it at least a 7-day type hunt, just to try and get more out of it.
So you've never had an experience where you go set up, have a terrible hunt, and have to get moved. You haven't ran into that situation yet?
No. So like up there, there was like two main guides that were operating, or transporters, I should say, that were operating out of Kotzebue. And even though they have separate businesses, they were still talking to each other and letting each other know, like, hey, I flew over this river and it seemed like there was a decent amount of caribou, or seen some animals over here and this valley. So, I mean, they work together, and they're not trying to, string each other out, because everybody's trying to make money.
Well, and you don't want to pick up 4 people that have just, or 3 people that have just paid you $18,000 that are pissed off in a small little bush plane. It's like, you want people to have a good experience, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's all part of the smart business model, I guess.
You talked a little bit about it earlier. Somebody drops you off in a plane, they fly away, and they see you in 9 days or whatever it is. Talk a little bit more about that experience, because I think I've dipped my toe in remoteness in Canada, but I don't even think it's even remotely close to what you're talking about in that scenario. Like, how does it feel, like a guy from Wisconsin who is maybe used to being around at least a small subset of people, to being like, oh no, it is truly me and these 2 people out here?
Yeah, I mean, every now and then you might see a plane go over or something, but it's all your show. Like, you got to do everything from there on out, and it's nerve-wracking, especially that was my first time ever being in the backcountry. like true backcountry. I had gone elk hunting in Idaho once before then, and rode horseback into like 5 miles of the wilderness or something. But I never spent so much time in a tent that had huge grizzlies and large populations of wolves and everything. And it makes you realize how big you actually are in this world, and it isn't very big.
Yeah, I feel like every time you come back from something like that, you have more respect for the ground that you're hunting and how much you really control out in a situation like that. Which was there in your first couple backcountry hunts? Was there any eerie situations that you got in, or anything like too close of a call, or anything when you see a bear the first time that freaked you out? Any experiences like that?
So that first hunt for caribou, never seen a grizzly. Saw grizzly tracks. I did see a wolf. That third day, my uncle shot 2 big caribou, and one died down at the river bottom. And we were dealing with this other bull because the second one was a giant. And I guess maybe I was a little bit jealous about that bull. And I guess a quick side story on that is he was going to get the antlers mounted. He was going to do a shoulder mount. And he brought the antlers back to his house. Well, his son, who lives like a mile and a half from him, he had this dog, and it was some mix. I don't know what the dog was, but his name was Panzer. And Panzer came up to the house one day when Dan, and that's my uncle, and his wife were gone. And he chewed the freaking tines out for the antlers.
Oh my God. I'd have one less dog and a few less tines.
He's like, I have never wanted to kill a dog so bad in my life. But so we were dealing with that caribou and taking it apart, and my cousin Ben was like, "What is that?" I turned around and looked. There was a black wolf standing on the bank of the river, looking down at that other dead caribou. And I took one look at that, and I had a wolf tag in my pocket. I'm like, "I'm gonna kill it. He's got to go." And I took off running toward him, but the wind switched, and he saw me or smelled me or something. I never got anywhere closer than like 450 yards. And I was having issues with the rifle that I brought on that trip too. So there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to pull off that shot. But I never seen a brownie or a brown bear until my brown bear hunt. And on the third day, Justin shot his bear, and the shot was marginal. And he told me, "Go up on top of this ridge and wait up there. I'm going to go into the other bush there with." He brought there's a blue heeler named Milo. I'm going to take Milo in there and see if we can't push that bear out if he's still alive. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I go marching up this little ridge and have my backpack and my rifle over my shoulder and come up over the top of the ridge. And 50 yards away, there's a bear sitting on its haunches looking at me. I'm like, "Uh-oh." And all of a sudden, he's like getting up real slow, and I figured it was the bear that he shot. It just bedded down, and it was. So he gets up real slow and like looking at me. I never put a cartridge in the rifle before I walked up there. And one thing that I learned after that is you always keep rounds in the gun, whether you actually want to keep on the chamber or not, and be a little bit more safety conscious. I would understand, but I couldn't get the cartridge that was in the magazine. I couldn't get it to cycle into the barrel or into the bore. So that rifle essentially turned into a single shot. I shot the bear twice, and I don't know if it was the fear, but I've never felt like so helpless in my life, like trying to feed that rifle with the bullets and just trying to make sure that I didn't get beaten. But I mean, the bear only went like another 30 yards after I fired and it tipped over in the river. But that was definitely a good first pucker factor for living up there. I was scared.
Was that a black bear or a grizzly?
No, that was a brown bear.
Or a brown bear. Okay. And
Yeah,
grizzlies Grizzlies
a
are what? They're a
9-foot brown bear.
subspecies. Grizzlies are a subspecies of brown bear. They're the same species, but just like a little different.
Yeah, I mean, people argue about it all the time. They say that they're the same thing. It just depends on like the coastal range or where they live. They say like 75 miles in from the coastline, anywhere like around the coast of Alaska, those are all brown bears, and anything beyond that is a grizzly. But I mean, the big difference is the size, because the coastal brown bears, they obviously eat salmon, and there's a lot of food for them out there between the the fish and the other mammals that are living out there, and then the vegetation. It's just easier for them to get food.
So they get a lot bigger.
Yep. My bear that I killed was 9'6".
It never stood up on you, did it? You said it was kind of hunched down when you shot it.
So the bear that I helped finish off or whatever, Justin's bear, that I think that one went 9 foot. My bear, I ended up shooting like the last day in the last hours, and I shot him at 250 yards because it was just like the last ditch effort to get a bear, and we were leaving at like 11 a.m. the next morning and getting flown out.
So did you measure the skull on that brown bear you shot?
Yeah, it was like 26 and a half. The skull didn't really match the body size, I guess, in my opinion of it. I mean, his bottom teeth here were all broken up. I don't have the skull here. It's still up in Alaska in one of my storage units. But yeah, it's crazy, like the big canine teeth and stuff that were even cracked off. He was an older bear. They were estimating him to be 25 years old.
Oh my gosh. That is wild. Because the bear I shot in Saskatchewan, I shot a black bear, and he was like 18 something in the skull, which 18 is Pope and Young for a black bear. And
Yep.
I've seen the comparisons of like a black to a brown to a grizzly, and I'm like, oh, that looks like a juvenile. That looks like a baby compared to what like a brown bear skull looks like.
Yeah, so I can't remember which bear it is, but right above my head here, that way. That might be my first black bear that I shot up in Alaska. And I remember taking that skull, and when I got my brown bear skull back, I opened the mouth up, and I mean, he could crush that black bear's head just with how big he was. It's crazy when you walk up to those animals for the first time.
Do you have any idea
Justin's bear, my bear, it's insane.
Do you have any idea what a brown bear, what yours would have weighed?
We were guessing 800 because he had just gotten out of hibernation. I mean,
oh my God,
just
800.
Yeah,
that's small.
Yeah, 700 to 800 pounds is what we were going to guess, and they would go over roughly 1,000 in the fall, I believe.
That makes me sick because a black bear where I went in Saskatchewan, they're like, if you shoot a 400 pounder, like that's a monster. Like that is huge. And you're saying like 700-800
I mean, it's the same
pounds.
thing in Wisconsin too. If you get anything over that 300-400 pounds, like you got yourself a true monster.
There were several other trips that you got to do. You said you obviously shot a brown bear, or you shot a black bear, caribou. What about blacktail? What was that like? Because I'm interested in that one too.
Okay, so me and the Sitka blacktail deer, we have a very colorful past. That was the first big game hunt that I actually got to hold a tag on. I hunted them in 2008, in December of 2008 with my dad, and I didn't kill one on that trip. I was 13 at the time, so a little bit young to be tromping around the mountains on Kodiak Island. But it just instilled in me that I've got to get a blacktail. And it was actually the week after we got back from Kotzebue. We loaded back up, ran back up to Anchorage, and flew down to Kodiak Island. We stayed in the cannery. And the main focus of that trip was supposed to be mountain goats. And I was like, that close to getting a goat. And there was a herd of like 13 goats. And I want to say I was like 125 yards from them. Brown bear chased them off. All the bears, there were so many berries up on top of these ridges and the fish were gone already, that they came up to the top of the mountains and they were eating all the berries up there. And I watched that bear like go across the valley. And I'm like, he ain't gonna go mess with those goats, because he was feeding out the berries and the goats were sitting up on top of the rocks, like looking down at him. He ain't gonna mess with them. We're fine. I was wrong. Come up over the top of the ridge, just get my rifle settled on one of the billies, and all of a sudden they take off. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I see the big hump, the brown bear hump. I'm like, you are lucky that I don't have a brown bear tag, pal. Scaring off my mountain goats. Those are fighting words there.
Yeah, those were pretty highly sought after too. I mean, was it hard to get a tag?
I want to kill a mountain goat worse than a doll sheep, personally. I'm gonna go back up there and get one of them. I don't care what it costs. I will get one.
Man, so did you have to draw the mountain goat tag? Obviously.
Nope, that was a registration hunt.
Yep. So that was the same hunt you obviously went for your Sitka, your blacktail. What ended up happening with that?
So because we went so early in the season, it was tough to see the blacktails, and it was just really green and little deer. They blend in fairly well. So the weather was horrible. We got rained out and fogged out probably 2 days in a row, I want to say. And the weather broke around noon one day, and we were like, all right, let's jump in the boat. We're going to ran across the bay and go see if we can find a blacktail. It was, I don't know however many years, 13 years since I hunted blacktails, and we'll see what happens. So we split up, and me and another guy from the Kenai Fire Department were hunting together, and we found this little knoll, and we were watching this big face. I was like, I don't know what we're doing, but we're just going to give it a shot. Well, it started raining again. As soon as that rain broke, the sun poked through the clouds, and all of a sudden I was looking up, and I'm like, oh, it looks like a deer. Because the Sitka blacktails, they have that double white throat patch. That looks like a damn deer underneath that bush. I looked and like, oh my god, the buck. I'm like, Mike, we got to go. Like, I'm gonna kill that thing. And we were like 400 yards away or something, and actually found on the stock, I found two really nice, like very respectable Sitka blacktail sheds. And one, I never measured him, and I probably should, but he would probably be giving that Boone and Crockett minimum a run for its money. And, but anyways, we went up over the top of the ridge, and he had like 7 or 8 does with him. And as soon as I came up over the top of the ridge, he saw me, but I was able to get as steady as I could, and I shot him, and he dropped right there. But we were probably 2 miles from the beach at that point, and it was getting dark. And so that was probably actually the most scary feeling I've ever had, is being on an island that is known for absolutely enormous, some of the biggest bears in the world. And I've got a bloody blacktail in my backpack, and this is fantastic. But we got the buck and got him taken apart, and Mike missed one of the does, but started our way back down, and we were both nervous about the bears that were around. So I remember we just started singing songs, and we were singing Friends in Low Places, and just trying to keep our minds off of anything that was possibly creeping around in the woods. But it all ended up being fine. We shot one more blacktail on that trip, and I think that's probably going to be one of the trips in the next 2 years probably that I'll go back up there and hunt again. Because there's a couple of areas on Kodiak that are known for monster bucks, and as long as you don't mind paying the airfare, there's a pretty decent chance you'll see something really big.
When you think of Alaska, it sounds like in a lot of places that the game are plentiful. It's just a matter of planning, research, and finding a way to get out there.
Yeah, and the research can be really daunting too. talking to the biologists and stuff, everybody hits on that. Whether you're watching TV shows, you're listening to podcasts, everybody says call the biologist, call the local game wardens or whatever. And that's fine. But, I mean, the environment has a big impact on your hunt, too. And I mean, you can lose several days of hunting time just based off of a bad storm moving through that they can't fly in, or you can get snowed in and not be able to get out for another couple of days, which is something you have to plan for. And the logistical part can be a little bit scary too, just making sure you have all the equipment that you need.
That is the daunting part right there. There's a lot of hurdles that the average person is not going to put in the time logistically to figure out, and two, doesn't have the financial discipline to say, oh, it's $6,000 to get out to hunt a caribou. That's not even a flight to get to Alaska, which is probably another $2,500. It's like I can't save for $10,000 to go on a caribou hunt, and it's like
Yeah.
I get torn in my life because I want to do the super slam. Like I want to shoot everything with the bow. Like that is a dream, and I'm torn between land ownership, like owning a bigger piece of like whitetail hunting ground, or being like, okay, maybe 20 acres is good, and then choosing adventure for the other part of it. And I get in that mindset quite a bit,
Honestly, that's kind of where I'm at too. Is I've got 57 acres that I just bought last spring in my old family land, and it's only a half hour from my house. Conveniently located in the same county that I work for, and it's nice. But when you buy a chunk of land, it's like, well, where's the next chunk? Like, do I want to go over to Shawano County, which is the next county over, and look for a piece of land there, and try to expand the empire, and try and get on a decent whitetail every year, or you just take that money and start doing some more research, and whether you want to go to Alaska or you want to go hunt Wyoming, like I'm going to try and do this fall. Go back down to Missouri and hunt down there too. And I mean, for one animal up in Alaska, you can probably go on 2 or 3 whitetail hunts down here and spend some pretty good cash and have a good opportunity at something big for what it costs to hunt. Like you were saying, $10,000, you can get a couple of pretty good whitetail hunts down here. You could go to Illinois during shotgun season probably, and then go to another state after that and still not spend 10 grand.
Oh, easily. Yeah. There was a lease down here in Texas that offered me to get on the lease down here, and it was like $5,000, and the biggest buck they had shot on it the last year was like 108 inches. And I was like, I don't know if you guys have shopped around. I was like, but I can go to Kansas for like $3,500. I won't, but yeah, I could go to Kansas on a guided hunt and like have a legitimate shot at like a 160 plus. And they're like, oh,
Yep.
well, you should probably do that then. I'm like, well, I'm not going to, because I'm not going to spend money on a whitetail hunt, like to hunt whitetail, just because any person that grows up, in the eastern part of the United States has probably been able to have some success hunting whitetail, and there's a lot of different states to do it. And I look up in my room, and my grandparents have a cabin where they let me store all my whitetail mounts, thankfully. And I look in there and I'm like, man, this is awesome. I've enjoyed shooting all these whitetails, but there's something in me that wants to get a little more Western, get a little more wild, get a little more adventure type hunting. Because sitting in a tree stand is fun. Saddle hunting on public land is fun. Getting a couple miles back and just, camping and that sort of thing, it's really, really fun. But I think every person that hunts inside of them, maybe some don't, but have this feeling or this urge. It's like there's something else. There's something a little more wild out there, and there's something a little more adventure. There's something over the next mountain, and it's time to go west. And I have that itch right now.
Yeah, I'm on the kick of just going to new places now every year. Like I never hunted Missouri until this last hunting season, and I went down there for the muzzleloader hunt. The year before, I went to Oklahoma and got to try that, which was cool. That's definitely some different country than I'm used to. But this year, I think we're probably going to try and pull our antelope tags in Wyoming. So, I mean, I've hunted Wyoming before, but it takes a little while because I haven't really built up many points in other places until this 2 years ago. I started going and buying points in Montana, South Dakota, uh, Colorado, Wyoming, all over the place. I've got black bear points in Michigan and putting in for stuff in Minnesota too, because I like doing different things. And it's actually kind of funny how I just got back from Florida, and I always go down there every spring and go fishing and just kind of decompress from the wintertime. And the guy that I always go fishing with, he's a former captain for like a federal prison system. And I was telling him, like, dude, do you know anybody that I can go hunting with down here, like for the Osceolas, and not pay $3,500 freaking dollars for a turkey? I was like, dude, you should have called me. Like, I got a 300-acre lease like an hour north of here, and you just go out there and hunt them if you want. Something completely new that I missed out on. But he also invited me down there to go muzzleloader hunting for whitetails. I thought, swamp deer hunt down in Florida at the end of October, that'd be kind of fun. Something that not too many people do, and maybe I could end up writing another story on that or something like that, because you don't see that very often. Because with whitetails, I mean, they're not 180 inches or anything like that, but still something different. And that's what I'm trying to evolve into from. I didn't do everything that I wanted to up in Alaska. I didn't kill a moose. And that's usually a lot of people's big golden ticket item that they want to hunt in their life, is killing a big Alaska Yukon moose or a Vidal sheep. But I guess if I wouldn't have came back as quickly as I did, I'm sure I would have went after a doll ram or tried to get my moose. But I mean, hopefully got a lot of life left in me that I can go back up there and do some of that stuff. Can't kill everything in one season, unfortunately, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, there's always something else to go after. I don't know. I maybe it's unique to whitetail hunters, but I see I don't know. If I'm not learning, I'm not having a lot of fun. I've noticed in the last 3 to 4 years, like if I'm doing the same thing, I'm going and sitting on the same stand location, or I'm going to the lease and I'm sitting in the same draw that I've hunted for the last 5 years, seeing a similar caliber of buck that I could shoot year after year. To some people, that might be heaven, right? It's like, it's a consistent experience. It's great. It's repeatable. For me, there has been, my fancy has not been tickled with like that sort of itch. Like going to Canada for me just opened up like a can of worms that I can't put the lid back on now, because I'm like, oh my God, I can put in for all these different states, all these different species, and start doing it. And I don't know. It's something now. Am I as dedicated as to move to Alaska? No, probably not. But I am to a point in my life where I want to start doing some of that stuff. And I just feel like it takes, to do a lot of that stuff, it takes a lot of intentionality, because it's not like an Eastern style of hunting, like a drive in and grab you a tag and rip, right? That's not typically how it goes in the West, right. But that's something I'm willing to do on the research side, and on the, just trying to find good quality hunts. It's always good to connect with people that have similar ideas or aspirations too.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like one of the tougher things that I've found is trying to find a good hunting partner. You guys don't want to kill each other by the end of a 5 to 10 day hunt. And thankfully, over the last few years, ever since, especially when I came back and even before, my hunting partner that I always go all west with, we graduated high school together, and I stood up in his wedding, and we get along awesome. That our minds always seem to be in sync with each other when we got to figure out what's got to get done, or what we're going to do on a stalk, or what's going to happen once the animal's dead. And I feel like that's like one of the biggest hurdles of being able to do this, unless you want to hunt by yourself. And I've done that, but it's not that fun being by yourself. It's more fun sitting at the campfire and drinking beer after you're done hunting, or making dinner, or something like that. That's what makes these hunts so much fun, is the camaraderie.
At the Hunter's Advantage, we live by the KISS slogan.
You were not supposed to tell them that.
No, I meant we like to keep it simple, stupid. All jokes aside, Exodus is the definition of keeping it simple. Let's say you aren't really sure what arrow setup you should run. The Exodus Arrow Builder will help you build the right arrows for your exact setup.
Or if you don't have time to change those trail cam batteries in the dog days of summer, Exodus has a great selection of cell cameras and regular trail cameras. And if you pair them with one of their solar panels, you'll be set for a long while. I've shot over a dozen deer and a big old black bear in Saskatchewan with these arrows, and I trust them to fly right and get the job done. And they have something for everyone with the Exodus NIS micro diameter arrows or the Exodus MMTs.
So if you want to save money on Exodus arrows, cell cameras, or anything else they got on their website, make sure to check out ExodusOutdoorGear.com and use code HA10 for 10% off.
Once again, that's ExodusOutdoorGear.com, and make sure to use code HA10 for 10% off at checkout. Now let's get back to the podcast. That's a good point. Yeah, I do want to do some solo hunts just to mainly to prove that I can do that, like be in the solitude and the aloneness, and like I think there's something to be learned in that space, but 95% of the time it's like, no, I'd rather spend that with someone else. And that's a good point. I mean, and I'm especially in the States right now, there's like a loneliness epidemic, especially in men. So most men don't have really close friends, right, to go on these things with, which that's another barrier that you got to have with someone not only who has the same desires as you and aspirations, but also someone who has the somewhat of the financial means or at least discipline to save money and go on some of these hunts, because they all cost money, right? Like every sportsman in the eastern part of the country wants to go out west. I know most of them do, but it's like, oh, well, not this year. Didn't save any money this year, or had a bad year at work, or spent it all, bought a new truck. And to me, like, I'm at the point in my life where it's like, I could get a new truck. I could upgrade my truck. It's almost got 200,000 miles on it, but I'm like, no, I'd rather go hunt an elk. You know, like truck's going to be the same. It's going that the new car smell is going to wear off, but the elk is going to be there forever.
Yeah. And Facebook keeps tempting me because I get like the dealership ads or whatever on there and be like, yeah, there's this, 2022 Chevy Silverado with 7,000 miles down in Green Bay for 40 grand. And I'm like, oh, that's right in the price range too. I'm like, mine's paid off. I don't really have to do anything with it. Do you really need that land or that truck payment, or do you want to try and spend it on land? And it's just a constant fight that I have to play with myself, trying to get my priorities straight. But it's when you're talking about the solo hunting thing, I've heard the guy, I don't know how many different podcasts that he's done over the last few years, and I follow the channel because I do believe in a lot of what he says, and that you guys just had the conversation with him, is John Eberhard. The guy cracks me up because he funny. Does not, and forgive my language, but he doesn't give a shit what people think. And I think that's awesome. I know that there's people that he doesn't like in the outdoor industry, and there's people in the outdoor industry that don't like him. He doesn't care. And I find it hilarious because there's so many people out there that they try to cater to what other celebrities or, writers or whatever think. And my involvement in the outdoor industry is so minute, because I've written like 10 articles or something for different magazines, and I don't even like post things on social media anymore, but I think that's more the law enforcement side of me coming out. But John talks about that all the time, like having a good hunting partner is tough because of a story that he talks about where he set up a stand in this one location. I think it was like his brother or brother-in-law or something that was another big scent hawk guy, and whipped on a buck because I don't think he had put his outer shell or something on that wasn't scent lock. And like a 150-inch buck came in and he either missed or spotted him or something like that. And he was talking about how he was just better off, hunting by himself. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can agree to that to a point, but if you don't have anybody to share your kill with, it's not nearly as much fun.
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not. You shoot a big deer on public land and you drag it out by yourself. It's like, yeah, there's a sense of accomplishment there, but there's not, every person. Why do people share their spots that they hunt and their big deer pictures and their kills and all this stuff. It's like, because you want to share it with people. You want to tell people about it. It's like, look at this buck I got on camera. I'm like, is he still alive? They're like, yeah. I'm like, I wouldn't be showing people then, but it's like people can't. They
Yep.
have to. They physically have to, because there's something deep inside of us that wants to. People need other people. They just do. And it's the same way with hunting. It's the same exact way. You need somebody like that. And heck, it probably doesn't hurt to have a few people like that, because life happens. People have kids, things happen, people, family members die. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
help to have a nice steady group or rotation of folks that you can count on.
No matter what people say, everybody wants to get some sort of attention. Whether it's a congratulations or an attaboy for something that they did at work, or they want some sort of recognition. And man, it's just trying to contain that, whether it's trail camera pictures, kill shots, magazine articles, videos, YouTube content, any of that. It's just, you got to try and manage it, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But like, to me, everybody around here in my neck of the woods, trail camera pictures. Everybody likes showing each other what they get on trail camera. I don't even keep those damn things on my phone anymore. I don't want to send them. And if people want to show me, that's fine. But at least I can just say, nope, I don't have any trail cam pictures. And then I don't get wrapped up in oh, this buck's coming off of my land and it's going on to your land. But I ended up shooting it, and then people just get pissed off at each other. And I experienced that this year because I killed 2 10 points that were, one was like one of the bigger bucks that we had on camera in the area. And I shot him the third night of the bow season. And not everybody, but there was some murmurs going around, oh, how did you kill that deer? Well, deer luck, I guarantee it wasn't skill. I will be the first one to say that it was not skill. But I guess watching, a lot of it was John's videos and like the YouTube channel stuff that he puts out there for the content. Just leaving the places alone, hunting some of that security cover. And I did have scent lock on, so whether or not that had anything to do with it, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But the whitetails are something that I'm trying to focus a little bit more on, because in Alaska I didn't have that option. Down here you can just literally walk out my back door and there's public land back there and you can go hunt whitetails. In Alaska you could bow hunt moose out your back door, but you might not see them. You might see a lot more people though too. But there was so much land, but there just wasn't like the animal numbers up there like there is around here. And I guess I didn't realize what I had at home till I left. And I think that's what a lot of people go through when they're younger and they move off, and you don't realize home until you leave home.
So do you enjoy hunting whitetails in Wisconsin like you haven't in the past? Like, do you appreciate it a lot more now?
I appreciate bow hunting a lot more. I still hate rifle season. I hunt it because it gives me an opportunity to get out and potentially get one of my hit posters, but that drives me nuts sitting there and listening to all those gunshots on opening morning. The atmosphere leading up to rifle season is a lot of fun. Like, everybody's all jacked up and ready to go. But after that first hour in the morning, I'm good. Maybe there's an overtime shift or something available to work that instead. It's more productive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, at least you're making money that way. Yeah. I was hunting with my little brother this year, and hunting actually the first place I ever shot a buck, and we were sitting on a pond dam, and I was like, man, Northeast Oklahoma's not that bad. Like, I've killed some deer up here. It's fun. And I heard across the fence, literally like 50 yards from us, it's like, boom, boom, boom. I was like, oh, I remember. That's why I quit hunting here. Like, there's a family across the fence that shoots every deer that walks. So opening day of rifle season is pretty much a war zone across the country.
So we're getting better with that. Years ago, it was if it had antlers on, it was going to get shot. And now it seems like a lot of people in my area, they're upgrading to 2-year-old antlers. They get shot. I'm like, come on, let's do it to like 3 years old at least.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. I mean, they pay their property tax like I do. They buy a hunting license like I do, and there's only so much you can do. But that's also why I go out west, upstate. Just try to focus more on the adventure than the kill itself. Getting out there and hanging out with people. Like the antelope hunt that we're planning for this fall is going to be 2 guys I went to high school with and one of their dads. And then both my parents, even though they're divorced, they both live out in Wyoming too. So I'll get to hopefully meet up with them and maybe even do some hunting with my dad. So, but that's all part of the adventure, like I said.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that adventure aspect, that's pretty awesome. I mean, you can get pretty adventurous even with whitetail too, hunting new states and seeing new country. Is there anything on I know you said you've hunted Wyoming, Michigan, Florida, a lot of these places, but is there anywhere you're excited to go for whitetail this year?
If I can pull off the Florida whitetail thing, I think that'd be a lot of fun. I really like muzzleloader hunting now. That's kind of a happy medium between rifle hunting and bow hunting to me.
Right.
Because I'm not going to get wrapped up in the crossbow debate, but I can still draw a bow back. I'm not hunting with a damn crossbow.
Yeah.
Not unless I like blow my shoulder out or something. I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. But have you ever been to Florida, like down into the swamps or anything?
My wife's grandparents live in where's Florida State? What's that? Tallahassee. Yeah. I've never been to the swamps though. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've hunted down there for hogs a couple of times. And when you're sitting there in the morning listening to the swamp come alive, it is so cool. Like there are so many different animals and birds and stuff in there. It's neat. So I think that's what's kind of that draw to Florida. And I could definitely see myself retiring down there at least 6 months out of the year until it gets too hot. But I'm going to go back to Missouri for muzzleloader season at the end of December this year. I don't think I'll hunt Michigan. The wolves are pretty bad up there, so we didn't see much for deer last year. But when you were talking about adventure, even like with whitetails, I heard you tell that story about your recurve hunt this year.
Oh yeah,
that sounded pretty freaking cool to me.
Oh, it's so fun. It was awesome.
But
yeah, 2.5 day hunt. Yeah, it was freaking awesome.
Just like the thickest, nastiest crap you can find. And I mean, you pulled it off and you shot a dandy, so and seen another big one.
Oh yeah, no, that one was crazy. Like I was busting through briars just to get back in that spot, and I remember being like, "There's deer in here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to shoot through all these briars and crap and all these cedars, but yeah, no." Had one come right down the creek, and he scared the crap out of me. I was like, all I heard was like something running in. I was like, da-da, da-da, da-da. And I was like, what is that? And I looked down. He's like at the base of my tree. I was like, oh crap, that's a good buck. And he only weighed 113 pounds. So he had I think he was like 125 ish, but he was 113 pounds. So I promise you, he looked like 135. He looked huge underneath me. I was like, oh my gosh, drew back first buck with a recurve. It was awesome. But it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like hunts like that and just something that's different. Seeing new country, seeing something different, using a different weapon. Like it's stuff like that that keeps it fun. And there's some people that love to go to the same spot and shoot a deer over the same feeder every single year, and that tickles them. But I don't know. I have a desire to just see something new every year.
I've hunted the property that I bought. I've been hunting that since I was 12 years old. I mean, it's been a long time now that I'm basically grown up on it. I know it damn near every tree that's on that place. And, I mean, it's still fun. I still learn things about the deer every year. But I like the unknown. I like going to a state that I have no clue what to expect. And you show up and now you got to figure it out, and it's all on you. But like, I know you guys have hunted Kansas, and Kansas is still kind of under fire for not allowing trail cameras on public land.
Yeah,
I think it's freaking hilarious because I don't know what the tag numbers, like how big of a difference it was from years previous, like if less people hunted it or not, but it sure seems like the public land thing is taking off so much during like COVID with the hunting public and the content producers really highlighting on public land, which is it's good, but it's definitely making it more competitive.
the precedent or what they were doing with just being able to take the wildlife commissioners and decide a piece of policy that affects so many people without any representation, that kind of flustered me a little bit. But the actual thing itself, taking the cameras away, did not bother me one bit, because I was like, that is a reason that
Yeah.
keeps people flocking back to those pieces of public land. Is like they get a picture of a big buck and it gives them hope. And then, if they know a big one's in there, they're going to hunt all season, which is fine. Like, to each their own. But I was, after seeing the pressure that was in Kansas, I was like, trust me, non-residents and interest in Kansas, trail cam is not going to be the reason that people quit hunting here. Like, the interest is there. So any reason for there to be less people selfishly, that's good. But I mean, that's probably pretty short sighted of me to say.
Public land whitetail hunting, it does interest me if I have a good basis to start on and like look at, as far as like scouting and stuff. But like, I know you guys have gotten into it and are big into the saddle hunting. I've never even touched one. I have no idea where to even start with it. And I think Jacob made a comment about like the whole saddle thing. Like, it's expensive. Those freaking things are expensive to get off of the ground and start hunting out of. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to pay $500-$600 to get into a saddle and hang off the side of the damn tree like a monkey, and I have no idea where to even start with it. I would try it. Sounds like a decent adventure. The adventure's got to start somewhere.
Oh yeah, everybody's got to find their version of venture. Yeah, it's funny, we did an ad for Out on a Limb that we run on the podcast, and it's like, we call it tree Pilates because it's hilarious. Like, the angles you can shoot, if you just let go and go hands free, like, you'll go completely sideways and just be hanging there. And I love it. Saddle hunting's super fun, but it's also one of those things that, I don't know, I feel like people in hunting take crap too seriously, and I love poking fun at things that people take way too seriously. So calling saddle hunting tree Pilates, just, I know that'll fluster some people. It just makes me so happy.
Well, dude, it's kind of like in law enforcement. Like, you get the guys that they go totally balls to the wall and they get the most tactical, and they have all the pouches and the magazine holders and flashlights, and they have this type of a plate carrier that can withstand however many rounds from a 308 rifle, and it's basically the same thing of being a tackleberry, and it's 110 miles an hour wherever they go, as far as the tactics and stuff are concerned. But it's the same thing as a whitetail hunter. They can be their own version of a tackleberry and have them all the equipment to going overboard with all that stuff too. Very, very similar.
Yeah, I'm curious. How was your hunt in Oklahoma that you did? Did you enjoy it for whitetail?
I loved it. I thought it was awesome. We got down there and we hunted that first night, and I didn't see any deer until right at last light, and they were too far away. But the guy that we hunted with, it was semi-guided, just so we could have access to private land. And he's like, I don't care what you shoot. You can shoot does, but if you shoot a buck, try and shoot something nice. And he's like, you guys know what mature bucks look like coming from the Midwest, but just realize the bodies are much smaller than what you guys are getting used to. Like, whatever, it can't be that much different. Huge difference. The next morning, I had this big buck come out chasing the doe, and I was hunting on a river bottom. And he chased the doe down into the river bottom, and I only saw it was one side, left side. So I shot him in the neck as he was going down in the river bottom. Walked up to him. I mean, he looked like a freaking giant in the scope. Walked up to him. Not only was he snapped off on his right side just below his G2, but I picked him up, and I mean, he's probably similar to size to what these 2.5-year-olds. Actually, there's a couple of 3-year-olds on top of my gun safe here. I'm like, I can't believe how small this deer body is. That night, my hunting partner shot a buck out of that same blind. He calls me. He's like, dude, you should have just sat here all night. Like, I just shot a giant on. Like, fantastic. You're going to shoot a giant buck out of the same blind that I just screwed up. So he walks up to it, and it was like 130-inch 9-point. So still a very nice buck. And he's like, I thought it was, literally like a 160 when he saw it and shot it. But it was just a big shock to how different the body size was.
So what part of without giving too much away, like what part of the state were you in?
Southwest.
Okay.
I think we were only 50-ish miles from Texas.
Okay. So I hunt Southwest too. Like I hunt there quite a bit. We hunt all over Oklahoma, but I hunt Southwest quite a bit. And you get over to the eastern part of the state, and it's like Labradors with horns. Like you're talking, if a buck's 130 pounds, like, oh my gosh, that's a good one. Like you can still shoot big ones in Southwest Oklahoma. I shot a 230-pound live weight buck, which is a pretty good one. Maybe 180 field dressed, 190 field dressed. So there are some of those, but yeah, the shock, if you're coming from the Midwest, like the shock of what a Oklahoma deer would look like would be pretty different.
Yeah, we were actually in my buddy's garage the other day, and he had the skull mount of his Oklahoma buck sitting right next to a skull mount of a 3.5-year-old-ish buck that he killed down in the southwestern portion of Wisconsin. And like the skulls were so much different. Like the Oklahoma buck was so smaller, like compared to the Wisconsin buck. It was crazy. I was like, yeah, I never even noticed that. But even if you look at the pictures, like their faces, the noses seem like they're shorter, and like there's not really as much filled out like in the sides of the head. And just it's interesting. I can't imagine if I'm lucky enough to go down to Florida, how different that's going to be if I did a buck down there.
Oh my gosh. Come down to Texas. Like you think they're small in Oklahoma. The Central Texas deer, I'm not kidding you. Like some of the bucks are like less than 100 pounds. Like they're so tiny. And then when they get a 120-inch rack on them, you're like, God, that's a 150-inch deer. Like they look huge. They look so big. And then you walk up on them and they're not. But yeah, that's funny. I want to shoot a.
Well, I tell you what, I will help you go up to Alaska and we can go caribou hunting or whatever. And you say when the Texas whitetail hunt, I'll be on the plane the next day. Guaranteed.
There you go. Well, I've
never hunted Texas before.
I've had very little luck in Texas. I mean, I've shot a couple bucks in Texas by permission properties, but the public land situation in Texas, if you want to get pissed off, start doing some research on that. Like I have a 10,000 acre piece 20 minutes from my house, draw only. There's pieces around, draw only. There's not a piece, the biggest piece of or the closest piece of public land that I can hunt with my bow is 2.5 hours from my house. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I went out there in December to take my neighbor hunting for the first time. He'd never been hunting, and his son. And I got out of the truck it was like December 16th. And I got out of the truck and there was 16 people hunting 1,000 acres, and about 700 of that was so thick it was unhuntable. So there was basically 16 people on 300 acres. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, we should be in the parking lot just coin flipping, like who gets to go out today. Like, none of us are going to kill a deer. We're all wasting our time.
Go back to the cabin and start drinking beer, I think.
Oh my gosh.
No way I could deal with that many people.
Oh, yeah. The Texas, it gets a little bit better in the northern part of the state, and then you get western, right? But I'm just like, hey, if I'm going to drive 5 hours, I'm already in Oklahoma. So why would I stay in Texas? Like, I'm already back where I'm from. So I just tend to hunt Oklahoma more. But I did shoot a really nice buck in Texas this year, but it was off a buddy's place. So that wasn't a public piece. There's some good ones, man, but
hey, it's all about connections. Got to have good connections sometimes.
I was telling my buddy that I've got a couple of them that have let me shoot a deer over the years. And I'm like, yeah, I got a list going. I got in my notebook, I have who I owe a deer to. When I get my own property, it's going to be like, this guy gets first and then this guy gets second because they let me shoot him.
Do you guys, do you and your wife have any anticipation of going back to Oklahoma at any point, or you're kind of set in Texas now?
I would love to live in Oklahoma. That's a dream. A lot of it for me, Texas is super expensive, and a quarter of the people that listen to this podcast are from Texas. So I'm not going to dump on it too hard because a lot of people from Texas support us, and we appreciate it. And there is actually some really good outdoor recreation opportunities in Texas, but for the most part, it's on private land. And the amount that it costs per acre to own anything substantial down here, like $15,000 an acre would be like a starting point. down here where I'm at, and it's like I have aspirations of owning. I've heard people say before, and Don Higgins says it, if don't set your goals too low, because God can definitely exceed what your wildest expectations are. So I'm like, if that's the case, and our Creator in heaven can give me anything I want, it's like I want 1,000 acres. Well, that's not going to happen in Texas. So I would I would anticipate that maybe going somewhere maybe a little bit more affordable at some point. I just don't know what that looks like right now. Trying to figure all that out.
Well, you could go to the UP of Michigan and still get land for under $1,000 an acre, but you're probably gonna have more wolves than you would deer.
Hey, that's an adventure in itself. That's what I've heard. We've talked to several folks from there that are like, yeah, the deer population is rapidly plummeting. The wolves are taking over.
Yeah, that's a sad story, but I mean, you can still get into some pockets of deer out there and have a lot of fun hunting them. It's just got to put a little bit more time and effort into finding that specific deer that you want to look for.
Yeah. Another thing I like about Oklahoma too is it's a good launching point to get west, right? Like if you live in Oklahoma, you're not
Yep.
far from Nebraska, South Dakota, Colorado, New Mexico. Like there's a lot of really good western hunting opportunities within 10 hours of Oklahoma. So that'd be a big driving factor too.
I guess that was one thing that we didn't talk about for Alaska stuff is that was an issue for me. Like going up to Alaska and living the hunter and fisherman's dream and trapping, because I do a little bit of trapping every now and then as well. But like Alaska doesn't have any professional sports teams, and I'm not a sports person. But
yeah,
growing up around Green Bay, if we wanted to go to a Packer game, it wasn't that big of a deal. We also have a very good college women's basketball team in Green Bay, and if you wanted to go watch that, not a big deal. Usually cost you $10 for a ticket or something. We also got the Brewers. If you want to go to Milwaukee, that's 2 hours away from where I live. In Alaska, where I lived, if I wanted to drive to Anchorage, as a crow flies, it was like 60 miles. It took you 3.5 hours to drive it. It was 156 road miles. You're going to spend that. You got a day of drive time going back and forth, and you want to do anything. So I mean, that was a big factor in me coming back, was just being able to have access to going to different things. Like if you jumped in the truck and drove 13 hours, I can be in Wyoming in 13 hours from my house. I mean, you'd probably barely make it to Fairbanks from my house in Alaska in 13 hours.
That's been a big consideration for me in where I'm at in my life, is like one of the only beefs that I have with Texas, and they might have this might be a benefit or something that people in Texas like, is that the state is so big, right? The state is so big that you can be in Southeast Texas and drive through the Panhandle, and you might still be in Texas in 12 hours. You're still in the same state, and you haven't even got out of the state yet. And where I live in Central Texas, it's like I'm 5 hours to get out of the state. That's just to be at a starting point to go somewhere else. So that's been tough for me, is like if I want to go to Nebraska, for where my parents live in Northeast Oklahoma, where I was hunting in Nebraska, they could be there in like less than 8 hours. For me, that's like a 16, 17-hour drive. It's like it makes a lot of the Western hunting a lot less accessible, right? And I put, since I bought my truck 5 years ago, I've put 130,000 miles on it hunting. And I can tell you this, if I never drove again, I would be fine. I would be completely fine if I never drove again.
That's crazy. Because you guys live in a metro area in Texas, right?
Yeah, I live about 35 miles north of Austin.
Okay. So, like, how do I put it? Have you guys thought about like flying out west or anything? Like, do you want to do all hunting?
Yeah, I've considered that. I think it's a creature comfort to just want to have my own vehicle. I just like it. It just makes me feel like it's like a little mobile hunting wagon. Like I know where everything is in my truck. I know I can put coolers in my truck. I can sleep in my truck. I have a battery pack in my truck to start it. I've got a kit to change a tire. Like, it's just all of those little comforts that make me want to drive, And if I lived in Oklahoma, it'd be a little less of a big deal. But in Texas, it's like I probably should fly. I probably shouldn't be driving like I am, but I I don't know. I like having my own truck.
One of the other, I listen to like 4 different podcasts mainly, like between your guys' podcast, Truth from the Stand, is another one, and Clint has this little enclosed trailer thing that he pulls out west with him, and he'll live in that damn thing for like 3 weeks at a time, and that just cracks me up because I'd like to do something like that, but dude, if I tried to build something, I guarantee you the angles would be off, none of that shit would be level, and it would be all cattywampus. So I can appreciate that. And if you ever listen to this podcast, dude, if you could build me one, I will pay you. But there is no way that somebody that has a law enforcement degree like me, especially with what I do for a living, that I can build it. But anyways, something like that would be kind of cool. Or even like how John has his, what do the tether guys call it, like the mommy wagon of death.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, we've we have a wall tent now, a 14 by 16 Davis wall tent, and we use it on public all the time, and it's fun. It's not fun to set up, but it's fun when you get in there. Well, this last year when we were hunting public in Oklahoma, it rained real bad in the bottom of our tent. Like we had a tarp and it just filled up with water, and it's like you couldn't walk in there without water, and it pissed me off real bad. And I was like, man, you can get a pop-up camper for not much more than we paid for this wall tent. And now that's another set of tires you got to worry about. There's different stuff you got to worry about, but I've been in one of those before, and I'm like, these things are really nice. And I'm like, I've considered buying me a piece of crap one off Facebook Marketplace and getting me a nice spare tire and rolling around with what we'd call the Pope and Young Inn. I'd put some stickers on it.
Pope and Young Inn, that'd be a good one. Or actually, I literally just got off the phone with my buddy that I'm going out west with a little while ago, and his kick right now is he wants to bring a camper out to Wyoming with us, and there's a couple of spots that we're looking at. There's RV parks where, I think it's $210 for the week. You can hook up to electric and water. They've got the restrooms and
showers,
hot showers and stuff right there. I was like, yeah, that's not bad compared to the $1,000 we're going to spend on an Airbnb or something, and save a ton of money. But none of us have a camper that we feel is roadworthy enough, and we have to start begging and borrowing to get somebody to lend us their camper. You can ask. I'm not going to. I'll go stay at the Airbnb if I have to, or in the back of my truck. Put a topper on it, and it wouldn't be the first time I slept in the back of the truck on a truck topper.
Oh yeah. Man, that's another thing. Like you have a lot of people that have this must be nice attitude. It's like, oh, it must be nice to go travel and hunt. It's like, yeah, but I'm not staying in a hotel every time I go to hunt. Like 80% of the time I'm staying in the back of my truck on a 3-inch foam mattress, and I wake up and I'm like a different shape than I was when I was sleeping in there before. But there's ways to do it, man. Lodging is one of the most expensive things ever.
It'll kill your trip as far as your funding goes, and if you're trying to budget for it. So like we spend a lot of time going up to northern Wisconsin and ice fishing in the wintertime. And my hunting partner, his name's Jake too. His idea of going up north is, hey, let's drive up Friday night. We'll sleep in the truck, get out on the ice at 5:30 in the morning so that we can catch the walleye bite, that first light. We can't get an Airbnb or something. Like, dude, we're getting too old for this crap of sleeping in the back of the truck for a night freezing. He's like, no, it'll be fine. And I'll wake up at like 3:30 in the morning. Like, dude, when we get out of this truck, I'm going to kill you.
It raises the temperature in the room. Everyone, a couple of days of that, and everyone's like, all right, who wants to have a knife fight? Anybody want to, it's just like stupid stuff like that. We went to South Dakota.
But at the end of it, you get home and you're like, I'd go do it again.
100%.
Somehow, for some reason, I'd do it again because it was fun.
100%. We went to South Dakota and Wyoming for a bachelor trip last year for turkey hunting, and we slept in the front seat of the truck for 6 days. And I'm talking like at a 45. And by day 6, they were like, y'all want to get a hotel? And I was like, this isn't even up for debate. We are getting a hotel. I'm done sleeping like this. I didn't sleep, but like, I swear to you, I only slept an hour a night. It was terrible. I would have rather slept on the ground. It was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Go roll up in a sleeping bag in a tarp or something. It'd probably be way more comfortable than sleeping in the damn truck.
Oh, yeah.
With the memory.
Man, those are so those are our version of like that's like an Easterner's version of like an adventure, right? Like it's fun
Yep.
and just getting little tastes of stuff like that, even traveling to South Dakota and Wyoming to turkey hunt. I'm like, man, I want to come out here and do some backcountry stuff. Like I want to come out here, camp on my back and go in deep and just with a buddy and just enjoy it. Like enjoy some of the suck, even if you don't get anything. I've noticed that the Western folks just seem to have more of an adventure experience mindset to their hunts. Like when you're hunting for whitetail, it's like you've seen if you're hunting in the same spot you've hunted your whole life, it's like you're after the animal. It's like it's not about the experience. You're after shooting you want to shoot an animal and you want to go home for a lot of folks. The West seems to be more focused on adventure, and I've admired that the last couple of years.
So it seems like as I go through the years of hunting now, I've definitely slowed down and gone away from I got to shoot everything. I'm gonna get every antlerless tag. I'm gonna get every doe, or turkey tag that I can, and I'm gonna try and kill everything that I possibly can. Now it's just focusing on I'm gonna take 7 days. I'm gonna go hunt the Missouri muzzleloader season. Go experience something completely different. Hopefully, meet some really cool people, and just have some good pictures and memories to share with everybody when I get home. Versus, that falls to the wall. I gotta find a big buck and fill that cooler up and take it back home with me. And that even goes for like every year. Even when I was gone, they were still doing this. We'd go up to my buddy Jake's cabin up in northern Wisconsin, and we were able to get antlerless doe tags, and we'd go bow hunting for a weekend on public land up there, and there was so many deer. That was one of those little hotbeds of pockets of deer where it was too civilized that there wasn't that many wolves. And dude, I remember going out there one night before I left for Alaska, and I'd see 30, 40 deer in a night. There was that many deer when I was hunting these logging hunts. And it was so much fun. We'd take 4 or 5 guys up there and just have a great weekend, go drink beer, chill out, relax, and we would usually fill all of our deer tags within a week or two. And we did that one this last year as well, but it's an adventure. Everybody's got their own definition of an adventure. Some are a little bit more broad, and some people maybe have a little bit more experience in their versions of it, but everybody's got to write their own definition.
Absolutely. The more I've got interested in the Western stuff, the more I've been listening to like Remy Warren, and he's like his podcast Live Wild. It's just like, no, that's different for every person. It's just like go out there and live wild, experience your version of adventure, whatever that means to you. To some people, that's going out and hiking and camping. To some people, that's shooting an animal. But it's like, to me, I there's so much out there. Like we go to Colorado to ski every year, and I love skiing. But the only thing I can think about when I'm up there, I'm like, gosh, I know there's something up here to shoot. Like I know there's an elk up here. Like I want. So I don't know, man. It's
funny you bring that up, actually. So yeah. I haven't skied in like probably 4 or 5 years now. I used to do it a lot when my ex-girlfriend got me into it, and she would let me go with on these ski trips for college. And the first one was out to Big Sky, and I remember it was freezing cold and a lot of snow. So that was fun. Didn't really see much for animals, but then the next year I went to Telluride. And I thought the exact same thing. We're going up on the lift, on the chairlift, and I looked down and there's like 10 muleys sitting underneath the chairlift eating on an open grass flat because there wasn't hardly any snow. And I'm like, I wonder how many other muleys are sitting here, how big of bucks, or I wonder if there's shed antlers over in the thicket over there. And it doesn't matter what I was doing. Even in Alaska, I skied down at Alyeska, which is outside of Anchorage, and started looking up in the mountains and like, I wonder how many bears are eating berries out there in the springtime. Like, can I come back? So, yeah, same thing. Just can't not think about it. You're always trying to get ready for the next season.
No, exactly. Before we had Hunter's Advantage, we had a page called Through the Peep, and it was like everything we wanted to do, every adventure, every place that we wanted to experience was like through the peep, like through the peep site, right? It's like when my wife talks about vacation, wherever she names, it doesn't matter. She could say Italy. I'm like, well, what can you hunt in Italy? Like, is there something I could shoot? Like, and she's like, no, we're going on a vacation for us. And I'm like, yeah, but there could be something to shoot there. Like,
Yep.
I'm with you, but it just consumes you. It's just something that you want to do. And now that I've gotten any taste of adventure, it's like, dude, I just want to grab a couple buddies and go. I want to go do it. Like, I can't quit thinking about it.
So like when I'm talking about adventure, like for myself, it's not maybe just big game hunting. It's not just whitetail hunting. It might be duck hunting with my black lab because I just got him into it like full time this fall because I didn't have any deer tags to worry about. But I've kind of evolved that into trapping a little bit more now that I got back from Alaska because I still have my equipment down here. But diving, I love diving, and when I was in Florida last week, we did a couple of freshwater dives. I really want to do a lionfish hunt, which you can do down in like Pensacola area. And they say that lionfish is some of the best tasting sushi that you'll ever have in your life. But it's just kind of that little hunting aspect. You got to dive down there, which I love doing, getting into the water. Now you got to find a spiny fish that if one of those spines hits you, it's going to hurt like hell. Let's do it. Sign me up. Say when.
So is it the bow fishing, like the underwater bow fishing? Is that what it is?
No, they use I can't remember the exact terminology for it, but it's a spear like with a rubber band on it, so they pull it back and let it go and stab the lionfish.
That is so cool. I watched a meat eater video the other day where they were bow fishing underwater, and I was like, dude, that is so sick. Like, I'm not a water guy, don't like being in the water, but if I did, that looks like adventure.
I watched that episode like where he was spearfishing. I don't care what people say about Steven Rinella. Like he gets criticized a lot for like his political views and like how he views like anything with politics. I don't give a shit. The guy produces great content. He's got great videos. And if I ever had the opportunity to be on the Meat Eater podcast, I would literally pay my own ticket to go out there and talk to him. It just seems like I could go and sit and have a Coors Light with the dude, and it would be fun, especially since he's a Midwesterner from Michigan. But the episode that always pops out to me is when he was in Louisiana, and there's those damn sharks swimming around underneath him. I'm like, nope, I ain't doing sharks. Not happening.
No. We were me and my wife went to Puerto Rico for our honeymoon, and we were doing some snorkeling, and we did it like, obviously you snorkel and you're supposed to just relax, so you float. I didn't know that for like the first 30 minutes, so I'm just out there swimming. My wife's like just having a conversation. I'm like, how are you? And she's like, oh, I'm relaxed, I'm just floating. I was like, oh, okay. So that snorkeling is enough of an adventure for me in the water. I'm not doing anything where your head goes under the water to try to kill something. That is completely out of my element.
So one of the other coolest things that I did, like I started my hunting season off last year in Florida in August, did a pig hunt, and then I also went snorkeling for scallops. I love seafood, anything that's seafood related, I like going after it. And so like you're snorkeling in 6 to 8 feet of water, and you go down there, pick the scallop up, and go back up to the surface. Well, I heard something that sounded like somebody talking because you're on a charter. And I looked over my shoulder, and this big stingray, probably a couple feet wide, swam through like really fast. And I was like, that's cool, but stay over there, kind of like the sharks. Stay away. Don't need to see you. Don't need to hear you. But kind of like bears, I don't really need to be 10 feet away from you or anything like that until, unless you're hunting them and run an arrow through them. But
my black bear in Saskatchewan tried to get in the stand with me. Like he put his hands on the steps to get up into where I was on that platform. I was only about 8 feet off the ground. And I told my hunting guide about that. I was like, dude, I was about to throw up. Like it was scaring me so bad. And I was like, that's the first time I've ever even seen a black bear. And he just started laughing. He's like, oh, they do that crap all the time. He's like, that's not, he's like, that's not scary at all. He's like, you just go, shoot, get off, go bear. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah, they're super. He's like, they're really scared of you. They're not even really like that.
Up there, they pretty much treat them like a dog. Like you crack them on the nose with a newspaper when you don't like what they're doing. It's like, I don't know how you guys can do that.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. We were driving down a bunch of those roads, the dirt roads in Saskatchewan, and dude, you'd see them just 10 feet off the road, and you'd roll the window down, and we would take some trail mix and throw them some M&Ms, and they'd like get like 5 feet away and just start like eating the M&Ms. I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible. It's like, thank God we already shot 2, because if this happened on the way up, I wouldn't be hunting. Like it was funny.
Yeah, it's cool. I've never hunted in Canada, but it's definitely on the list.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Paradise. Going up north of the border, that's paradise. Whether it's Alaska or Canada, it's all awesome. But man, if you're ever down south again, you got to let me know. Like even if you make it to Missouri or Oklahoma, I'm not too far of a drive. Maybe we can link up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd totally do something like that. Especially if you have a connection or know of a place where you can go hunt hogs. I love hunting hogs. That's way too much fun.
Oh, I got a place to hunt some hogs if that's what you're interested in.
Oh yeah, and I'll even go bow only and stuff. But it's fun.
Oh, we love to shoot oinkers. I know some public land that's got a ton of hogs that you can stock up on them. I know some private. Yeah, they're pretty fun. Stock them, yeah. Yeah, stock up.
That would be fun.
Have you never done that?
So in Oklahoma, actually, me and Jake, we filled all of our deer tags within like 2 days, and it was a 4-day hunt. And we're like, do you know anybody that does hog hunts right now? And the guy's like, well, call this dude. And we paid him a couple $100, and he took us out, and we did the thermal hog hunting. And I thought that was an absolute freaking hoot.
Oh yeah, that's really fun because you can get pretty close. But I like walking up on them in the daytime with a bow, get the wind right. Like it's funny because you get in their bubble and they kind of stop and they're like, I know something's there, but I'm still hungry. And so they kind of stop eating again. I'm like, perfect. Like we've snuck up on them during turkey season. And I mean, got like 10 yards and I'm like, stop. I hear something. And like, we'll look to our left and they're like milling at like 15 yards. And you're like, they're kind of stupid. Like if you can get the wind right, you can get close to them. I mean, stupid's not the right word, but they're very killable is the way to put it.
Yeah, I'd totally do like a spot and stock type thing. That would be fun. That'd be all
they're so fun. Yeah, heck yeah.
And it's easy too. And I mean, I don't know what your guys' opinion of them is, but like the 2 hogs that I shot when I was in Florida, I brought the meat back either to Alaska or to Wisconsin. And like it was very tough. It's definitely something that needs to go in the pressure cooker, but I thought the flavor was outstanding. I didn't have any issue with them.
Yeah, down here, I think there's such a nuisance that most people don't view them as even like a edible animal. They're like, I'll shoot them and I'll leave them right there. Like they hate them that much because you see them. I mean, I've had many deer hunts run by hogs, and usually when you see one, it's like the odds of seeing 30 if you see more than one are like pretty high. Like they walk in those big old packs. Like I've had them just run by me at 20 yards and I'm in a full draw and there's so many I can't even pick out which one to shoot. I'm like, ugh, and then they all get away. I'm like, crap. But they're fun, man. Yeah, you ought to come down and shoot some hogs.
That's how it was when I was in Florida too. Like the guy told me, like, hey, you're bow hunting, so I'm gonna put you in the best stand that we have. It's like when that feeder goes off, you need to be ready. Like they're probably gonna be there within minutes, like before that feeder goes off because they're so regimented. I'm like, okay, whatever. I've never hunted on an automatic feeder before. Dude, he wasn't kidding. Like 2 minutes before, all of a sudden you look over and the palmettos are like shaking because there's so many hogs coming out. Like 30 of them come onto the feeder. I have no idea which one to shoot at. I got to pick one that's close. I'm like, that's freaking insane. So much fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, man, this has been fun. I've enjoyed talking with you. I appreciate you sharing not only your Alaskan adventures, but some other hunts and some stories. It's always good to talk to people that, even though back when you're in Alaska or multiple thousands of miles, but even though you're 1,000 miles away, you share a common bond over pursuing these wild critters. And it's cool to be able to drive anywhere in this country and meet someone that has the same, passions and goals. So I appreciate it. And it was fun talking with you, man.
No, I've enjoyed it immensely, and we should definitely do it again, whether it's after the next hunting season, or like if we can do a meet up and go hunt some hogs or something, we'll have to take advantage of it.
That's right. I got a nice set of traveling headphones that I can podcast wherever. So maybe the next one in person.
Yeah, seemed like it worked pretty good.
Oh heck yeah. Yeah, cool. Well, for people that want to keep up with you and see pictures and stuff, I know you said you don't post a ton to social media anymore, but where's the best place for them to do that? Do you have any articles or anything you've written or anything to look out for?
Yeah, like I just had my big caribou hunt, the one that I had mounted. That story got published in, I believe it was November's Hunting Pool magazine. I just had a beaver trapping story published in American Trapper magazine for January, which I'm still trying to get a hold of a copy of that, because I like sharing the stories. I don't usually write anything that's like how-to type articles. I just like sharing my adventures with people. But Facebook isn't the best place for me to post stuff just because of work. But if you follow me on Instagram or something, I will start posting a little bit more on there, because Instagram just seems to be a better environment for some of that stuff than Facebook. But yeah, I would say that but Instagram would probably be the best place. Just my first and last name.
Just first and last name. That's your username.
Yep.
All right. Cool.